We have a lot of gas main transmission lines in Sacramento. The ones on these maps that I'll be showing you here are 6 inches or larger. You can find these maps online at the PG&E website. I'm going to go through them just rather briefly, just to give you an idea of where the lines are in relation to where you work. This is 35th Avenue right here. So we have transmission lines almost all the way around except to the south. This is Sac River Water Treatment Plant here. So this is downtown area, and you can see we have large transmission lines sort of zigzagging along the top edge of downtown. This is Fairbairn Water Treatment Plant right here. This is Sac State. So we have a large line running right through the middle of Sac State, cuts over to Power End Road and heads south. This is the 24th Street Courtyard right in here. Here's the airport. So we have a line, looks like it runs right along the base of William Land Park, and then it heads down 24th Street and then down to Meadowview. Nacy, the North Area Courtyard, is up in this location. Most of the power lines are down to the south of that. And here's the Meadowview location. Here's Meadowview Road turning onto Mac Road. So we have one right on Mac Road, and it cuts up 24th Street, north and south. Just something to keep in mind where the large ones are. To shut off a gas meter, you basically just take the stopcock with a wrench and turn it perpendicular to the piping. It's a real simple, real visual thing. I recommend that you keep a wrench at home chained to your gas meter in the event your house is on fire or you have an earthquake or something like that. It'd be real handy just to have the wrench right there to shut off your gas line as you exit the property. If you look for a wrench, if you need to run into your shop or your shed, if you went into my shed, you wouldn't be able to find a wrench probably for 20 minutes. You'd be climbing underneath boogie boards and tarps and cans of paint and things. And just keep it chained to your gas meter. Gas appliances shut off the same way. It's just real visual. You just want to turn the valve perpendicular to the piping. And I understand that the valve shutoffs on all our facilities are similar to these, to this one. We will have designated people that handle that, shutting off the gas mains in emergencies. If there's a medical emergency, if someone's injured and needs medical assistance, let them know that you're a city employee, especially if they're a member of the public. That might get them to relax a little bit. If they refuse assistance, don't force it on them. But if they do accept assistance, if you are certified in CPR, first aid, or AED use, go ahead and perform what you can to help that person. Please don't exceed your certification level. If they do refuse medical assistance, try to get as much information from them as possible. We'd like you to fill out a red border for risk. It always helps if we get a claim 3 months later about someone maybe falling or hurting their head at Crocker Art Museum or somewhere around town. It's good to know that 3 months before that we did receive a red border report. That's be the one you would use, and we would have some contact information so we can find a little bit more about the claim. And call 911 if necessary. Always notify your supervisor. When you do call 911, there are some numbers you can use. This 732-0100 number is a good backdoor number for 911 from a cell phone. If you call 911 from a cell phone, sometimes you'll get Bakersfield Highway Patrol. That's what I've heard. I haven't called it recently. But I have heard that they have corrected that situation so you can get into 911 just by dialing 911. But you should also have these other numbers on your cell phone in the event that that number doesn't get you through to 911 as quickly as possible. So it's 732-0100 in the city. City County Fire Dispatch backdoor number is 228-3035. That's 228-3035. And if you're in the county from a cell phone, you can get to 911 by dialing 874-5111. 874-5111. So when you evacuate, you're going to want to evacuate to the primary site that will be in your emergency action plan. If that site's not accessible, then you'll go to the alternate site. And you'll be notified to evacuate by several different methods: air horns, fire alarms. We even have whistles at some of the locations. Could be voice command, could be a telephone call or intercom system. What does this mean? You all know W.C. Fields? This is on W.C. Fields' tombstone. It says, "All things considered, I'd rather be in Philadelphia." The point of this is that my cheap attempt at humor is that we'd all would rather be someplace else, especially in the event of an evacuation. We all have things to do. We have great workloads. Oftentimes in evacuations, especially drills, people will use that as a good time to head off to the meeting that they're late for at City Hall or somewhere. We'd like you all to stay at the evacuation site. We need to get you into the habit of staying at the evacuation site until you've been cleared to leave. And the reason for that is just really simple. If we have a real emergency and we know that there were 50 people in this building and we can only account for 45 of them, we talk to the area managers. They say, well, I know 2 of these are out in the field. We still have 3 people missing. We didn't realize that they went off to Starbucks to get coffee or off to a meeting. They didn't notify anyone. We have a fire in the building. We're going to send the firefighters in to look for them. So we don't want to risk firefighters' lives unnecessarily. So please, it's very important to stay at the evacuation site until you've been released. I'm going to go through these frames fairly quickly. If you need more information about the evacuation sites for these different buildings, you just check for the emergency action plan for that location. It will be on the S drive shortly. This is 1391 35th Avenue. This is the west half of that campus. Primary site is the West End employee parking lot. 35th Avenue also has the 1395 section. That's broken into 2 different evacuation sites. So the customer service side, primary meeting site will be on the sidewalk next to the disabled parking lot. And engineering and business operations, their primary site will be the basketball court parking lot up at the northeast side. Let me go back to that for a second. Talk about mobility challenged people. We do have locations to transport mobility challenged people to, and every person that has trouble getting around should have someone assigned to them to help them in an emergency, and an alternate to assist them to get to the location in the event of an evacuation. SRWTP, this is a Sac River Water Treatment Plant. The primary site is the front gate. Secondary site is the rear gate, southwest corner. The Fairbairn Water Treatment Plant, the primary site is Grit Basin 3, and the secondary site is the front gate. And if you don't know where Grit Basin 3 is, and if you're working over at Fairbairn, or if you're working at any location for any length of time, talk to the people and find out where their evacuation locations are, just in the event of an emergency. Again, you don't want to be the person sort of trailing behind, looking for others to lead you if you can help it. NACY, the primary site is the pedestrian gate by the old employee parking lot at the north end of the property. And the secondary site is at the guard shack where you enter. Pioneer, the primary site is the gravel driveway just to the north of the Ford Museum, or the Auto Museum. And the secondary site would be the levee, which will require keys to get through the gate. Glen Ellen Water Conservation, the primary site is on the street to the south of the Glen Ellen site, and their secondary site is the Fullerton Pool area in the courtyard. Courtyard has 2 different evacuation sites. The south end of the courtyard, these buildings you see here listed, 7, 8, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22, their primary site will be the Fullerton Pool area. And if you don't know the Fullerton Pool area, if you spend any time at the courtyard, ask someone where that is. It's down a little alleyway at the south end of the site. The secondary site is north of the fuel pumps on the lawn as you enter the courtyard. So for the north end of the courtyard, those meeting sites are just reversed. So the primary site would be north of the fuel pumps, and the secondary site is the Fullerton pool area. And if there is, let me back up, if there is a complete evacuation of the 24th Street Courtyard, you'll use the north area, the north evacuation site as your primary. Meadowview, you may be interested in this one as well. The primary site is the northeast corner underneath the solar panels, that's above building 3. And the secondary site is the southwest corner at the end of the employee parking lot. So when you do evacuate, again, you want to evacuate calmly and orderly. Use the emergency exits only. Don't use elevators if you're in a building that has an elevator. Always know your closest exit. Dave mentioned, you know, when you go to the mall, people always go in one entrance, usually force of habit. They always leave by that one exit. In an emergency situations, what they found is people tend to want to get back to that exit that they're used to leaving by. So people are crisscrossing throughout the mall trying to find that their customary exit. So look for other exits. In the event of emergency, you want to find the closest one. Sheltering in place. When you do shelter in place, try to find a spot in the inside of the building, away from windows if you can. And the emergency action plans will oftentimes designate locations for that. If we need to evacuate to a higher floor, we'd like you, if there is time, to put important paperwork and computers, laptops, and things like that, at least up on the desk, up higher if possible, or if you're going to a higher floor, take them with you. Of course, if that would probably be in a flood type situation. If there's no time, of course, just take care of yourself. Re-entering the building or site. Do not re-enter the building or site unless authorized, and that's by the police or fire department. Always follow their instructions. And we do like to give the fire department a chance to have their picture taken before we re-enter a building. So if you could give them that. This was a training exercise. Some people's plans for evacuating, 10% of the people before this training, their main plan was to untie their houseboat. 14% were going to save their iguanas. 15% were going to crawl under a parent. 18%, I like this one, were going to pretend to be hypnotized. Studies have shown that that doesn't really work. 19% of the people were going to take a chance on a homemade jetpack. And 24%, their main plan was to scream their way to the front of the line. The point of this is just to have a plan, something in mind, a little better than what these people came up with. And we will be conducting emergency evacuation drills. We're not going to try to do anything to scare you. At least the first one will be, you'll have notice of. And the evacuation emergency action plan should be updated on a yearly basis, especially in regards to the authorities, the people in the plan. So this is your initial training. We encourage you to meet with your groups in your building and discuss the plan, especially when after it has come out and you've been able to read through the plan. I would take the page that has the listing of the site managers, alternates, area managers, print that out and keep it somewhere accessible in your cubicle or in your office so you can get to it quickly if you need it. Are there any questions? Well, thank you so much.